Hello, hello, and happy marvelous Monday, everybody. How are you today? I hope that you all are well. Listen, I'm excited that you are joining me today. I'm Karissa Span, your landlord and tenant coach. This is what I do each and every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I bring information that is relevant for landlords as well as tenants throughout the country. As a matter of fact, throughout the world, because there are landlords and there are tenants everywhere. And certainly, I'm excited that you are joining me today. Listen, if this is your first time tuning into my live, or if you are watching the replay, let me just say thank you so much. Welcome to all of my first time viewers. Thank you for tuning in by way of Facebook, by way of YouTube, as well as my LinkedIn pages. And listen, if you have not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, go on over to the YouTube page. Find me on YouTube and smash that subscribe button so that you'll be the first to know when I am live and online. Is that all right? And so today, what we are discussing today is it's pretty much just Q&A. Just ask Karissa. So any landlord questions that you have, any tenant questions that you have, that's what this session is about. And this is what I do once a month. It's usually the first Monday of the month. And so I do have some questions that came in by way of text message, and I will be sharing those today. So if you know someone who is a landlord, if you know someone who is a tenant, and they have any questions, go ahead and tell them to chime in right now so that I can answer the questions that you all have today. So over the past weeks, over the past month, I've been sharing a lot of information. And I know that for many of you, it may be hard to digest. And so I wanted to do this once a month segment where it's just Ask Karissa. So it doesn't really have to be about anything in particular. Maybe you have a question about doing inspections, or maybe you have a question about leasing up or the application process, whether or not a landlord or a tenant should be responsible for repairs. And so those are the questions that have been coming in. I have three text messages, excuse me, that I'm going to share with you today, questions that have come in by way of text. And I will be sharing that today because I want viewers, I want you all to hear some of the questions that I get on a day-to-day basis, because I recognize that a lot of people just don't know, right? And so, as a housing professional, I've been in the industry for almost 3 decades in various capacities with property management and real estate. And so, usually it's not too much that escapes me. I don't share legal advice, but the information that I do share is it's the industry's best practices, right? I do often like to share tips for landlords as well as um, roles, responsibilities, and rights of tenants as well as landlords. So I promise I won't hold you long, just long enough to answer any questions that you have, to share questions that have come in. Please let me know where you're watching from, where you tuned in from. I saw that I have someone tuned in from the Philippines. Let me know what geographical location are you in, and if you are not in the Eastern uh, um, area, let me know what time is it where you're watching from. So I know I saw Mary Lou on a little bit earlier. She's watching from the Philippines. And of course, in the Philippines, it's morning time there, right? And so here, Eastern Standard Time, it's a little after 7. We're closer to 8 p.m. So let me know where you're tuned in from. I want to acknowledge you in the chat box. Hello, Miss Smith. Thank you so much for tuning in from Washington, D.C. I appreciate you today. And so listen, today, like I said, it's all about questions. Ask Karissa. What questions do you have that are landlord and tenant related? Okay, so let me just give you a little bit more about my background. So I am a property management educator. I teach property management. I have been in property management for almost 30 years. I've worked in various capacities, uh, whether it's property management or in the housing authority, housing inspector, tax credit property, certified occupancy specialist, COS specialist. So from one program to the next, things will change and the rules will be different. And so today I just want to answer questions that you may have. And even if you have never participated in a housing program, maybe you're a market tenant or you are a landlord who have always rented your property to market renters. If you have questions today, the application process, the security deposit process, anything landlord and tenant related, I'm your girl. Throw it in the chat box and I will be addressing that today. Hello, Bishop Stedman. Thank you so much, Mama Bishop, for tuning in today. Hope that you are well, beautiful. Hello, Miss Davis. Happy Monday, beautiful. All right. So your question, Ms. Smith, is can you break your lease and what are the stipulations? That's a great question. That's a question that I get a lot from landlords as well as tenants. So here is what I would suggest. Um, Before I really get into the meat of it, I don't want to do a nosedive. So I want to gently guide you on this question with my response. So um, whether you're the landlord or whether you are the tenant, one of the things that I would look at when you are contemplating or thinking about breaking the lease, you want to find out uh, do you have grounds, number one, to break the lease? Right? Is there a lease violation? Has the landlord violated terms of that rental lease agreement? Has a tenant violated terms of the rental lease agreement? All right, number one. Secondly, I always say this, and I live by this philosophy that you can catch more bees with honey than you can with vinegar. So let's just hypothetically say that there is a bad relationship between the landlord and the tenant. I would try to look for the common ground to have a conversation about breaking the lease, right? Because here's the thing, if either party does not agree or does not consent to breaking the lease, that means you may likely have to take whatever the situation is to court if it's something bad. Now, let's just say, let's find maybe a positive reason to break the lease. Maybe there's a sudden change in income, or maybe there is a death in the family, or maybe someone got a job and they are relocating out of the area, right? And those are just sometimes um, reasons that people usually want to break the lease because they are financially impacted. Maybe they can't afford it, or maybe they got a new job and they're leaving the area. So have a conversation, heart to heart, woman to woman, man to man, woman to man, whatever, right? Have a conversation with the other party to say, hey, listen, I am interested in discussing ways that we could terminate the lease and then explain why. So you can have that conversation in person, over the phone, but I would definitely follow up with it being in writing. You want to send an email or a letter because you want to have it in writing, because it's not what we know, it's what we can prove. And if it's in writing, it exists. If it's just a conversation, sometimes people forget conversations. So have that heart to heart, that one-on-one conversation with the other party to see what your options are to break the lease, to see if the other party is interested in allowing you to break the lease. And if not, then discuss the reasons why they are not comfortable with breaking the lease. And if they flat out just say, no, I'm not willing to break the lease, then you may have to take that to court to see if the courts would uphold your request to break the lease. So I hope that helps. Hello, Tanika. Thank you so much, beautiful, for tuning in from Washington, D.C. Tanika is in the building. All right, Miss Davis, you said, do you know how much of a backlog is in the D.C. landlord and tenant court? That's a good question. I don't know the backlog, but I know that it's almost a year long. Because remember, Ms. Davis, we were in the pandemic, the courts were shut down. And as soon as the courts opened, wouldn't you know it, all of these landlord attorneys started filing court cases. And so I believe back in December, they were already scheduling cases for up through September of this year. So I don't really know the status right now, but what I would do is Ms. Davis, I'm certain that I've already provided information for an attorney for you, an attorney that I had to come in and to speak to the group, the DC Housing Providers Association. And so I can forward you that information. And if you wanted to follow up, I'm sure they could at least give you a better idea of the status of the backlog. But that's a great question. So do me a favor, Ms. Davis, if you wouldn't mind, please send me an email with that request. And when I'm offline, I'll follow with you with the information for the attorney that you can reach out to. They will not charge you any money. All right, just for that question. But obviously, if you want to procure their services, then, by all means, you could. You would just have to pay a retainer and whatever else they charge you for that. But please email me. As a matter of fact, stop what you're doing, Ms. Davis. Email me right now. That way I can follow up as soon as I finish. All right, Ms. Smith, you said, how does Section 213 operate outside of Housing Authority? That's a great question. So that program is not specifically for the DC Housing Authority. I am reminded of a property that I worked at where that owner had a contract with HUD directly. And so that required them to sign a contract. It required that owner to adhere to all the terms, all of the agreements of that program, but it's not specifically for housing authorities. So if it's a large landlord that has one property that I worked at, it had, I believe it was like 272 units, and they participated with HUD under this 203, 213 program. There are a lot of different programs under HUD, under the umbrella of HUD, and a lot of people are not aware of. A lot of people think that they must go through the housing authority. And so one of the things that I do is usually if somebody reach out to me and they say, well, Karissa, I'm looking for affordable housing, I will guide them. I send them the link to HUD's website because HUD has usually a field office in every state in the United States, including the District of Columbia, which is not a state, but every state has a HUD field office. And so you can go onto the website, look up affordable housing, and there are a lot of programs under the umbrella of HUD. But it does require that if whether it's the housing authority or if it's a private landlord, it does require the employees to go through training. They have to be certified to say that they understand the rules, the federal regulations to operate and to maintain that rental business according to the guidelines that are in place to manage that property, as well as the tenants. And so that's a great question. Thank you so much for that. Hello, Miss Lynn. Happy Monday. Thank you for tuning in. And here's your question. You said, yes, I met you over at Anacostia Road for my clients about her unit. You were very nice to work with and got our repairs fixed. Thank you for a pleasant experience. Thank you so much. I appreciate the feedback. This is what I do. I actually enjoy what I do. Actually, when I got into the business, it was a humble discovery. So a church that I attended back in the early '90s, they needed someone to clean an apartment building, and so I had a little free time, and I went. I started cleaning the apartment building, and my pastor at the time, um, he recommended that I go to what was it? It was a jobs partnership entrepreneur type of program. And he paid for a group of us who were aspiring business owners to learn about property management, real estate, and all of that. And so from then, I just kept going and growing. I created a property management company, I created a consulting company. And so now I do more coaching clients than managing property. And so I still have property management under my umbrella, but I have a team of young people, young ladies who are competent, they're knowledgeable, and they're like mini me's. So I don't per se manage the properties anymore because I've gone on to do greater things, but I am passionate about teaching. So, but I do appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right, Ms. Smith, you said, do you know the backlog of Maryland or are they under the COVID Act? That's a great question. So Maryland has, as a matter of fact, Maryland, in the state of Maryland, they were allowed to take tenants to court a lot sooner than DC. So their backlog is not anywhere remotely close to DC's backlog. So there's a small backlog, but not much because Maryland cases have been heard and will continue to be heard. So if you need any specific answers, I will give you my email address. And what I would like for you to do is email me. I can send you the link for that particular jurisdiction. So whether it's PG County or Charles County, whatever county it is, just email me and I'll send you the link so that you can contact the courthouse in that particular jurisdiction to find out the status of their backlog and if they're calling cases and approximately how long it takes because sometimes and usually you can call the courthouse, speak to the clerk, contact the clerk's office and ask a general question and they can give you an idea. But they can't give you legal advice. But if that's just a general question that you have, you can always contact the clerk's office for that information. Great question. Hey, Miss Pete, happy Monday, beautiful. All right, you said, does housing help you purchase a home if you are on Section 8? That's a great question. The answer is yes. It depends on the jurisdiction, however. In the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program, tenants are allowed to use their housing choice voucher to purchase a home. And when they use their voucher to purchase a home, the program will assist them with paying their mortgage for up to 15 years. Not rent, but their mortgage. And so I strongly encourage anybody who is currently participating in some sort of Section 8 housing choice voucher program to contact their housing specialist, their homeownership coordinator, their family self sufficiency or FSS coordinator to get more information about that. Great question. Yes, a lot of people have done it. I've met people personally who have used their voucher to purchase a home in the Section 8 program. It's a great program to go through. Um, it doesn't cost participants anything, right? And so that's just an advantage. That's a benefit of them being in that program. And there are a lot of resources that people don't even know exist throughout the United States, including Hawaii and Puerto Rico, okay? Because that's part of the United States. So if they're participating in the voucher program, they can use their voucher to purchase a home as long as that particular jurisdiction has a home ownership program in place, and they should. It's one of the things that I really like about the voucher program because it offers so much flexibility. Another thing that I like about, since we are talking about the Section 8 voucher program, another thing that I really, really admire and like and can appreciate about the voucher program is that when when tenants have a voucher, when they have a federal voucher, let me say that, because sometimes there are local vouchers, which means that the participant must stay in the area because there are local dollars associated with their housing assistance. However, when they have a federal voucher, they can get that voucher and they can live in that jurisdiction for 1 year. And depending on the guidelines for that housing authority, they can take that voucher and transfer it anywhere in the United States. So they can get a voucher in DC and transfer it to West Virginia, or they can get a voucher in West Virginia and transfer it to New York, right? And so that's one of the things that I really like about the Housing Choice Voucher Program. But here's the thing: usually there is a huge, when I say huge, I mean huge, a huge backlog and wait list of people who are trying to get the voucher. I promise you that somebody is contacting me every day because they are looking for housing. And unfortunately, if a list is not open, so let's say, for instance, Miss Davis, you're in DC. Tanika, you're in DC. So let's say, for instance, you all know somebody in DC, right? And they are looking to get on the Section 8 housing choice voucher waiting list. Well, if the housing authority does not have a waiting list that is open, they can't apply. So one of the things that I do is I tell people to go online, again, the HUD's website, look up housing authorities that has the Section 8 program. And then from that, what you'll do is go to every housing authority website. I'm dropping some good nuggets. I hope y'all are listening to me. Y'all, please give me some love, like it, share it, tag somebody. All right. I'm dropping some good nuggets. All right. So go to HUD's website, look up housing authorities, look up the housing authority that has a Section 8 program. You can go to every Section 8, I'm sorry, every housing authority that has a Section 8 program, go to their website, okay? And you can look up whether or not they have an application process that's online. You can look up whether their waiting list is open, and you can put your name on every waiting list available. Here's the thing: in many of those jurisdictions, you have to live there for 1 year. So let's say you live in South Carolina and you find a waiting list that's available in New York. You have to live in New York for 1 year, and then you can transfer that voucher anywhere else. How cool is that? Hey, Pastor Bellows, thank you so much for tuning in. Happy Monday. So Pastor Bellows today is all about Ask Karissa. So any questions that you have, landlord or tenant related, residential, I don't do commercial, anything residentially related, I'm going to answer those questions today. Hello, Miss Anderson. Thank you so much. Miss Anderson, please don't wring my neck. I love and appreciate you. Do housing pay for any damages over the value of the tenant's security deposit? And How long would it take to get a transfer voucher for my tenant to move in? That's a great question. So, um, depending on the jurisdiction, funds may be available, but usually that answer is no. Usually, the housing authority does not pay for tenant damage. If there are local dollars or funds available. So, for instance, in DC, local dollars have been made available for landlords, right? But in the voucher program under the housing authority, usually they do not pay for tenant damage. So that's number one. And then how long will it take to get a transfer voucher for your tenant to move in? So if your tenant has already um, applied for a briefing, right? They reached out, they say, hey, listen, I want to move, I want to transfer. That process should not take more than 30 days. If the process has taken more than 30 days, there is a problem. So please reach out to the specialist to say, hey, listen, um, my tenant has requested a transfer briefing. Can you provide a status? Now, they may not give you the status, but at least you want to get your foot in the door to have that conversation to find out if, in fact, your tenant has indeed requested a transfer. Here's why I say that. I promise you, I'm dropping some good nuggets today. Sometimes tenants would say, oh, well, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord, yes, I requested a briefing and I haven't heard anything. That may or may not be true, right? And so if you believe that your tenant has done that, find out who the specialist is, to send an email to try to expedite the process. And if that tenant has not requested a briefing, right? The specialist may say, well, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord, I'm sorry to tell you, but your tenant hasn't requested a briefing. So don't just solely rely on your tenant stating that they've requested a briefing, although it could be true. But just go ahead, reach out to the specialist to see if they could give you some sort of information. Great question. Any more questions? I'm answering all your questions today. Landlord related questions, tenant related questions. This is what I do once a month. I do a Q&A, but usually every Monday at 7:30, I share information. It's a different topic each week. And in the upcoming week, I'm going to bring a special guest on, and we're going to talk about inspections and why that's so important. And so for those of you who have been watching for an extended period of time, or if you saw me last week, or maybe the week before, I covered inspections. I shared some pictures. I know that housekeeping is an issue for a lot of people, right? And it doesn't have to be just tenants. I know some people watching may have a challenge with keeping their house clean, right? One of the things that my oldest daughter, she picked on me. She said, "Mom, you have so much stuff. You need a maid." Um, and it's not that I have a housekeeping issue. It's just that I like to shop. And so I bought all these clothes. I bought all these shoes. So I literally need a house just for all of my belongings, right? And we recognize that in rental property, and in small spaces where people have accumulated a lot of things over the years. Um, Sometimes it's a challenge to find a spot or a space to house all of the personal belongings. But then some people are actual hoarders where they just collect stuff. It could be old newspapers. It could be dry rotted newspapers. I had tenants who collected food, like boxes of food. And in addition to that, they were not the cleanest individuals. So there were roaches everywhere. There were roaches coming out of the boxes. And so if hoarding is an issue, there's a way to handle that. And so in the previous months, I've shared a little bit about hoarding. I'm going to touch on that again because I know that that's a big concern for a lot of you. Sometimes hoarding can be an indicator that there's some sort of maybe some mental health issues going on, because sometimes that's what's happening. People, they don't like to detach from things that they deem to be important. And so it may seem like it's trash or junk for us, but it may mean a whole lot for that individual. So there's a way to handle hoarders in a way that is most effective, but usually some sort of mental health agency can help whenever there is a hoarder. Hello, Dean Hunter. Thank you so much for tuning in. Dean said, this is what I was talking about. Yes, absolutely. Let's do this as small, once per month. Dean, I'm here for it. I can give you a whole hour if you like. We can chat offline and I will answer all of the questions that your members have. And let's do it, Dean. I'm here for it. I'm here for you. So, any other questions that you have? This is the session today where I'm answering all of your questions, landlord and tenant related. All right. So, we talked about Section 8. We talked about whether there was a backlog in DC court as well as Maryland court. What else did we talk about? We talked about repairs. We talked about how long does it take for tenants in the Section 8 program to get a transfer briefing. We've covered a lot in a short period of time. So if you have any more questions, I will take a few more minutes to answer your questions. And I promise I won't hold you long, but I just wanted to come and just have a conversation, right? Because I know that a lot of you have been watching, you've been having questions that I've not been able to answer. So if you have a question about the application process or the security deposit process, right? Like we could have a whole session about the security deposit and what does it cover? And do you have to give the tenant security deposit back? Or if you're a tenant, questions about does your landlord supposed to give you the security deposit back and the time frame around it? I know that over the past month, some people have questions about the time that you must give a tenant. So if you're going out to conduct an inspection or repairs, how much time in advance should you give your tenant? Now, with that question, it just depends on the jurisdiction. In many places, it's 24 hours, but check your local state or city to find out if any laws have recently changed. Here's why I say that because in the District of Columbia, it used to be 24 hours. It's now 48 hours. So that means a landlord must give a tenant 48-hour notice that they're coming in to make repairs, they're coming in to conduct an inspection. And if the landlord is not knowledgeable and they're acting off of old information, usually and in many cases, especially if tenants are participating in some sort of housing subsidy program, tenants know the laws better than some landlords. And so sometimes what you don't know can and will hurt you. So you must know what you can and cannot do as a landlord or as a housing provider, whether you own it and you're self managing it or you're managing it for somebody else. You must know what the laws are. The laws are constantly changing. Nothing stays the same forever. That's the thing that I love about property management and real estate. Nothing stays the same. Dean, you know this. Nothing stays the same forever. Listen, I love to play the game of Monopoly, right? And so when I'm teaching property management, one of the things in my class I do is I bring in different boards, like different versions of the Monopoly game. And we will sit there during class time playing Monopoly because some people never played the game of Monopoly. They don't understand property management. They don't understand real estate. They don't understand property acquisition. I'd have messed that all up. But some people don't understand that, right? And so I will bring in a new way of learning so that people will understand how to strategize. I make learning fun. And so this is why I enjoy what I do. So if there are no more questions, I'm going to ask that you share this information with somebody today. Please make sure that you are tuning in each and every Monday right here at Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let me give you my email address because I want you to be able to email me any questions that you have when I am not online. And Ms. Davis, please email me, right? And I'm going to get you that information. So that's my email address. All right. karissaspan@gmail.com. All right. So one last question here. Has housing ever offered orientation to tenants about damages or too many people living in the house? That's a great question. And yes, the housing authority does offer training and orientation for tenants on that subject matter, housekeeping, and a whole lot more. So I can assure you that especially in the DC Housing Authority, that things are changing. Now, I can't speak for all jurisdictions. I know that PG is really good. One of my good friends, Mr. McCoy, is over at PG. Anne Arundel Housing Authority is pretty good. I've worked with housing authorities, and so I know usually how they work with their tenants. And so if you have a question, you can always reach out to the specialist. You can reach out to the supervisor to see what services that agency offers for their participants. But yes, there is training. There are a lot of resources available for tenants because here's why. They want their clients, they want their participants to be successful. And I know that sometimes there are some bad seeds, right? There are bad apples. There are going to be bad tenants. And over the years, I've talked about tenants from hell. And I'm not bashing tenants because I'm a landlord and tenant coach, right? I'm a tenant advocate. I teach tenants how to live better so that they can be successful renters. So by all means, I'm not bashing anybody, right? But I do understand and know that there are tenants from hell just as much as there are slum landlords, right? So, but when there is some sort of housing subsidy program connected to tenants, usually they want those families to be successful because that's what the program is about. The program does not condone, the program does not support tenants tearing up landlord rental properties. That's not what the program is for. And I know that some people don't want to deal with, don't want to be bothered, and do not want to accept tenants who participate in rapid rehousing, Section 8, or other subsidy um, rental property programs. But here's the thing, whether you have a tenant that's in a housing subsidy program or you have a market tenant, you treat each the same. You manage your property, you enforce your lease when things are not right. You don't allow it to linger. You address it right away because the problem isn't going to go away on its own. And so, one of the things that I tell my clients when they come to me for coaching, I don't just tell them to enforce the lease, but I show them how to do it in a way that is so effective, right? And I believe in putting strategies and systems in place. A system is a repeatable process. It can be duplicated. You repeat it, you can rinse and repeat it. But if you don't have a strong business practice, well, I mean, you're just setting yourself up for failure. Hey, Pete, happy marvelous Monday. You said if they take it is the question. I say more than half is a no. Pete, what are you talking about? I shared a lot. Let's revisit that comment. If they take it is the question. If they take what? What are you talking about, Pete? And if you have any last minute comments or questions, remarks, or observations, please put it in the chat box. And again, I do thank you for your time. Thank you for showing up. Please email me with questions that you have. And as a matter of fact, other than Dean Hunter, my big brother, if you have a topic that you would like for me to discuss, you can email me, drop it in the comment section, and I will discuss it in an upcoming segment. So Pete, you still on? If you're still on, Pete, let me know. What are you asking if they take it as a question? So I'll wait a few seconds because I know Pete came on a little bit late. Pete is a real estate investor um, in Maryland, as well as a contractor. So that's my email address again. If you need to email me, it's Karissa Span, first name, last name at gmail.com. I see some of my students chiming in. Happy Monday to you. All right, so I take it that Pete is not on. So if there are no other questions, I'm going to say thank you again for tuning in. Thank you for watching. My time is up. I thank you for yours. Please make sure that you join me next week. Okay, here you go, Pete. You said when they offer classes about how to take care of their place, etc. Right, that's a good point. And so I believe that it should be mandatory, Pete, when tenants are participating in some sort of housing subsidy program. I strongly believe that training and education should be mandatory in order for them to move. Why do I say that? Because from a housing professional standpoint, I see how sometimes tenants don't know how to take care of the property, or tenants don't care how to take care of the property. So in life, people would do things for two reasons, either because they don't know or because they don't care. And so if they're participating in some sort of housing program, it should be mandatory. I believe. That's what I believe. That's what I stand on. I said it. I stand on. I believe that renters should be educated. I believe that everybody should know how to take care of a home. Whether they don't know, whether they don't care, I believe it should be mandatory because it is a good practice. I believe it is a good practice. It makes that agency a good community partner to produce clients or to have clients participating in their program. It makes them a good partner to say, we've trained our participants, and to give them a certificate of completion, because that says a lot. And it also gives them something to be proud of when they um, when they go through some sort of training, when they complete a class and they get a certificate of completion. It makes them feel really good because they accomplished something. And some of our tenants have never gone to college, they've never taken a vocational class, they don't have an extra skill set. So a certificate of completion, it gives them a sense of confidence to say, I completed something. And so I believe in educating tenants. So from a property management standpoint, when I'm out in the community, I always talk to tenants to educate them. I don't know, maybe it's just me, it's just my heart. I wish for world peace, right? But yeah, that's that. You said Pete is talking about the class. Okay. Pete, you said you type slow. Okay. I was waiting on you, Pete. I was waiting on you. I was waiting. All right, Maria, you said when interviewing a new tenant, you go to their current location to see how they are living now. I have done that, and that is called a home visit. When I'm working with my clients one on one in my coaching program, I actually walk through the process of how to conduct a home visit. I walk through the process of why a home visit is important. And I also walk through the process of what not to do when conducting a home visit. Because if you do it wrong, someone could sue you. So, but yes, I do support it. I do believe in it. I have done it. I coach clients on how to do it, and my clients have done it. They came back and they said, Karissa, it works. So, but yes, I would strongly suggest that if that's something you're going to do, put it in writing, make it part of your application process so that applicants and prospects will know in advance what your criteria is. You don't want to do something and people not be aware. Hey, Miss Quick, happy Monday, beautiful. I'm glad that you're joining me today. I was waiting on you. I've missed you over the past few weeks. And so today, Miss Quick, I'm answering questions, landlord or tenant related. So if you have a question before I jump off, anything pertaining to a landlord or tenant relationship, things that go right, things that go wrong, I'm answering those questions today. Any questions that you have. So I'll wait a few seconds for you to drop your comment or your question in the chat box. And if not, I will be on next Monday. So I'll wait a few seconds. I'm not sure if Pete is going to respond since he said he types slow. So Ms. Quick, do you have any questions for me today? And sometimes I get inbox questions. And so when I get questions, when I get emails, when I get text messages and telephone calls, I'll usually do a show around the nature of the calls, the text messages, the inbox messages that are coming in. And so again, if you have a requested subject that you would like me to cover in the upcoming weeks, in the upcoming months, please let me know. And I'm not sure yet, I'm thinking, how effective is this for you every Monday? Because I'm thinking I may go to once a month. Of course, I can do every week, but I just want to make sure that I'm providing information that's relevant to you all. So does once a week work for you? Do you think that once a month would be better to come and do these segments on Monday at 7:30? Let me hear your feedback. Before I make any changes, I want to know what's important to you, because I have a whole ton of information to share as a landlord and tenant coach with almost 30 years of experience, I promise you. But I'm working a lot. I'm starting to work now with clients more one-on-one through landlord and tenant coaching. And so I work with owners. I am getting back more into teaching tenants how to live in a healthy environment, a healthy life, and raising their families in a home that is decent, safe, and sanitary. And that's what I'm most passionate about. All right. So you said just being you is important enough. Thanks, Pete. I appreciate you. Okay. It's quick. You said every week. Okay. Thank you for that. All right. Well, listen. All right. I have to go. I'm going to check my emails. I know that I got some emails that came in. I saw my phone light up. So I do have some emails that I do need to respond to. Um, I appreciate you. I really do. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. I enjoy what I do. So please make sure that you share this information with somebody. Sharing is caring. Tell somebody to tune in next Monday at 7:30 p.m., whether you're watching on my Facebook page, my LinkedIn, or YouTube. Tune in next week. I'll see you all then. Bye for now.